start proceedings. So good evening, everybody. So welcome to this special edition of Expert Talks Online, which is, we're proud to be part of the Leeds Digital Festival that's running over this sort of next couple of weeks. I'm Kev Gray, Head of Partnerships, and I'll be sort of chairing the meeting tonight and keeping everybody on time. And we're very lucky because tonight's talk is titled The Awaze Digital Journey, Learning Commerce Automation. And we'll be sort of hearing over the next half an hour to 40 minutes about one of the UK's leading holiday rental brands in terms of experiences, challenges, and sort of learnings around their digital ambitions, and how the latest technology levers have been pulled to ensure their destination is reached. So I'd love to, really excited to introduce our two speakers tonight, Lucy Auckland, who is the Core Product Director of Awaze, and Andy McGilvery, who's the Director of Engineering at Awaze. And I think they'll probably do more of an introduction when they get into their sort of slide introduction for the first part of the meeting. I'd also like to introduce Simon Shepherd, who's the current sort of Equal Experts Awaze delivery lead, and he'll be sort of asking the questions in the midsection, sort of digging a little bit deeper into the kind of opening from Andy and Lucy. So just a bit of quick housekeeping. Lucy and Andy are going to start the meeting with an overview of Awaze for sort of 5 to 10 minutes, just for those people who don't know anything about Awaze or interested to know a little bit more about their sort of company. Then Simon will host a sort of very relaxed 20-minute sort of interactive Q&A session, digging a little deeper into the sort of digital transformation at Awaze, trying to sort of pull out some of the learnings. And then I'll sort of pull the meeting to a sort of end of that part of the meeting. Then I'll, for the last 15 minutes, open up for sort of general questions from the audience. Just to let you know, the talk is being recorded. And if you want to ask a question, I would encourage you to put any questions you may have into the Zoom sort of Q&A button at the bottom. But if you have any burning questions, put your hand up and we'll try and bring you in to ask the question directly. And the last thing is, this is meant to be social and fun. So please free to join in. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Andy and Lucy.
Great, thanks a lot. So, hi everyone, my name's Andy McGilvery. I'm the Director of Engineering for Awaze. I've been with the company since 2020 and I joined from Booking.com and Ocado.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Auckland. I'm the Core Product Director at Awaze. I joined Awaze back in 2017 when it wasn't even called Awaze. So I joined when it was named Wyndham Vacation Rentals. And then we got bought out probably about 3 years ago by Platinum Equity. And that's when we became Awaze. So when I joined the company, I was head of projects and then moved to be transformation director and now in the role of core product director. So, Andy, if you wouldn't mind just moving to the next slide, thank you. So I thought we'd just start by a bit about Awaze. So not everyone's heard of Awaze, but we are the largest managed vacation rental and holiday resort business in Europe. So we have around about 100,000 accommodation choices in 36 countries. So those accommodation choices range from individual holiday cottage units to narrowboats on our canals to summer houses over in Denmark. We have some glamping pods, etc. So we have a really wide range of accommodation for our guests. So as I said, you might not have heard of Awaze, but hopefully you've heard of some of our main brands. So we have 3 main brands, cottages.com, Ho Seasons and Novasol. And our brands come with a range of heritage, which means that hopefully you will have heard of some of them. And our goal is to basically cross-sell product across all those brands. So we send about 8 million people on holiday a year. So I love what we do because we do something amazing. We send people on holiday, which is a really hopefully happy experience. And we work with owners to make sure that we're offering the best accommodation to those guests. We employ around about 5,000 people across Europe. And our vision is a simple one, which is to delight guests and owners through amazing brands and great customer experience. So that's what we do. That's a little bit about us. So hopefully you have heard of our brands, and if anyone's been on a staycation this year, which hopefully some of you had, you'll understand the product that we sell. So a bit about our digital journey. So why have we started to go on a digital journey? So when we looked at the organisation, there's 3 key challenges that we saw. The first one was that we weren't able to recruit the right talent at scale. in our existing UK locations. So from a UK perspective, we used to have an office in a little town called Irby, which is on the border between Yorkshire and Lancashire. And we also, Andy, would you mind going back forward when you've lifted your drink? And then we also have an office down in Lowestoft. So that's where the Ho Seasons brand was originally established. And it's become evident over time that we're just not able to gain the technology resources that we need to progress our business and build the new platforms that we wanted to do. So we knew we had a challenge around recruitment. We then also had a challenge around noticing that with our limited resources that we had, we were continually context switching. So we were continually pulling resources off one initiative onto another initiative. So we were in that kind of stereotypical project waterfall mentality where things were taking longer, scope was continually creeping, and therefore priorities just kept continually changing. So we were good at starting stuff, but not necessarily good at finishing stuff. And then our third challenge was that as a company that's been made up of lots of brands through acquisitions over the years, we've inherited a number of systems, and they're large monolithic systems, and they're a bit like oil tankers. So we found change really hard to deliver quickly, and we found that we had single points of failure with SME resource and also within the infrastructure itself. So they were the three key challenges that we saw that made us think we need to go on the digital journey. So we're going to take each of those in turn and just give a little bit more context around what we've done about each of them.
As Lucy mentioned, we were finding it hard to find developers in the areas that we were based. So the decision was made to wind down the Irby and Lowestoft areas as our tech hubs and to concentrate on two areas where it's easier for us to find good developers, Manchester and Copenhagen. Novosol's already based out of Virum in Copenhagen, so there wasn't much of a change there. But for the Manchester office, we opened up WeWork. We started off with one room there. We've expanded into two, and that's getting full pretty quickly. In the last year, we've recruited 70 people into the Manchester office and built up several product teams who are now delivering at pace. We'll be talking a little bit about that later on in the Q&A. We're looking to expand that even further in 2022. A lot of the work that Lucy and I are doing at the moment is figuring out our plans for 2022 and how we're going to increase the number of product teams over those two sites even further.
Okay, so the other thing we did was we reorganized ourselves away from a project organization into a product and tech-led organization. So what we've done there is we've created dedicated product teams and we've grouped them into three families in effect. So we've got teams that are associated with providing great guest experience. So we can relate those to the guest websites that you would all use if you were looking to book a holiday. We then group them around the owner experience. So this is around making sure that we're providing great owner experience through our owner portals, and we're providing our owners with the information that they require to service the bookings. And then we've got an area called Core, and that's what I'm the director of. And if you think of Core as the kind of wheels or engines that are needed to provide great guest and owner experience. So in things like Core, things like owner CRM, the pricing world, the core reservation systems, how we take payments. So the real core engines that power giving great guest and owner experience. And alongside that, what we've done is when we've created these teams, Andy and I are working towards a concept of making sure everything's got a minimal viable team. And on the slide, you can see the typical roles that we see within a minimal viable team. And what we're doing here is making sure that the team have the ownership and that they have the autonomy to self-manage their work and prioritise accordingly based on business value.
One of the things we want to do is bring all of the stock for our three brands together. That will let us cross-sell and it lets us reduce our operating footprint. Right now we have a few disparate systems, as Lucy mentioned. They've been around for quite a while and they're not functioning quite as well as we'd like on a few fronts. What we're trying to do is, and this will come as no surprise to anyone, move to the cloud first mentality. We want to take these monoliths, break them into smaller services and set up a service-oriented architecture. One of the things that comes with that, and as we move to product teams, is that we want teams to write it, ship it, and own it. So we want that autonomy to be there in the team, the teams to be proud of their work and to own the deployment of their systems out into production and their post-deployment support. The teams are looking after their work 24/7. We have observability in New Relic and it will alert into PagerDuty. It also alerts the operations team at the same time as it alerts the product teams, so everyone can mob on any problems that they see and resolve it as quickly as possible. We also want our systems to be brand aware, so we'll only write a service once, but we'll know which brand it's operating in based off the request that's come through, and we'll be able to support it in one place versus having several places to support essentially the same service.
So we've been on this journey for a little while now. And like any journey, there's some stuff that's gone really well and some stuff that we still find challenging and we're still finding our way through. So in terms of what's gone well, Andy talked about opening our tech hub in Manchester. When we did that, we started working with a recruitment partner who specialised in recruitment within Manchester. And that's really helped us and that's really paid off for us. So, you know, as Andy mentions, we've recruited 70 people over the last year. Sorry, everyone, I've got the good old back to school cold, so apologies. So we've recruited 70 people over the last year, and that's been really helped by working with our recruitment partner. They've been able to source the talent that we need and get them through quickly to us. And we've got a really strong relationship with them now. As Andy mentioned, we started with WeWork on a flexible office space. So that meant we could set up in Manchester quickly, but it's most importantly, it's meant that we can grow really quickly as well. So not only do we have technology resources based out in Manchester, we also have revenue management, we have property recruitment teams for Europe based out of there now, and we're really able to use that talent pipeline that's in Manchester to help grow our business quickly. And the WeWork office enables us to grow whenever we need to. We've also worked with Equal Experts to bring in technical resources. So although working with the recruitment partner has been great and we've been able to bring people in at speed, we have needed specialist technical resources to come in and help us understand some of the legacy complexity and look at how we can build the new services. And Equal Experts have been really great in coming in and helping us run discovery sessions and getting to understand the business across all our brands. The other thing that's gone well is that the reorganisation into the product teams. So our team members have really enjoyed being given a focus and being able to say no. So we are able to, based on business value, say no to a number of things that once upon a time we would have just tried to juggle continuously and probably not get anything over the line. And the concept of saying no has actually gone down well across all our stakeholders because we're actually able to manage expectation now and understand what value we can deliver to the business. And I'll let Andy talk about it more now, but also moving to the cloud has really helped us.
Yeah, we decided to use Amazon as our web service provider, cloud provider. It's worked really well. We have existing expertise in the company that's been taking our monolithic systems and moving them into the cloud as a lift and shift, building up that DevOps experience, and then being able to help the new incoming product teams. We've been hiring an awful lot of DevOps engineers. That is one of the challenges that we find as well. It's really tough to find good DevOps engineers at the moment. one of the things that we're really working on is trying to skill up the engineering and product teams to be able to do as much of that as possible. And with the DevOps engineers we have internally, we're working with them to create a set of templates so that it can accelerate the amount, the lag, make it a lot easier for the teams to roll their work out. They can take templates and build up their services and push them out into production. We know that they're already set up for good observability and security, and it just lets them run a lot faster. Where we've felt the challenges is taking the whole organization on the journey. As Lucy spoke about there, and as we covered on a previous slide, we were pretty bad at saying no, and we would need to create a project. We would take a couple of people from a few teams, put them together, disrupt those teams, not really create a great team to do the work. There were individuals working in a group, but not really as a team. And the Tuckman model just meant that those teams wouldn't be performing well. They'd finish their work, they'd go back to their existing teams, and we wouldn't really be left with a great support model for how we take those services and move them on. There's also a lot of people who don't like to change much. So helping people move down the change curve has been a bit of a challenge. We're definitely getting there. The people that we have joining the organization, it's been a lot easier for them to adapt because they've not come from these legacy brands. When Lucy talks about heritage, Host Seasons has been around for 70 years. Some people in the calls that we're on, the monthly all hands calls, are in their like 45th year with the organization, and they've seen a lot. The pace that we're moving at these days, it can come as quite a surprise to people. I'll let Lucy talk about blending teams.
So one of the challenges we feel is, as Andy said, we've got a number of employees that are long-standing and have a lot of knowledge with us. And one of the challenges we see is how do we bring together the new employees and our existing employees, and how do we get that balance right within a team so that we've got enough understanding of the business and the subject matter expert, but how do we bring new thinking into those teams so we can see basically things through a fresh pair of eyes and challenge our current thinking. One of the other challenges we see as we go through this is, as we talked about, the big monolithic systems and our desire to get away from them. It can take us time to get to meaningful deliverables. So there's a lot of foundational work that we have to do. And while that's happening, we're often not delivering value to the bottom line of the business. And that takes time, and that can cause frustration because it's a balance of keeping the legacy going, but investing the people to work on the new things as well. So that's often a challenge for us in terms of making sure that we can focus on where we need to get to and not get caught up on the legacy stack. The other challenge we felt is we've done a lot of this in lockdown. So as we said, we recruited 70 people into Manchester. I remember welcoming our first 2 new employees into Manchester, and the next day we went into lockdown. So meeting in person has been a real challenge for us. We have had some face-to-face time in the UK, so in between the lockdowns we managed to make that happen. Obviously we've got a number of colleagues based out in Copenhagen, and it's only just probably in the last 3-4 weeks that we've really been able to start to have some face-to-face contact with those colleagues. And that's hard, right? Because taking people on the change journey that we need to take them on is really hard on a remote basis. And also the other challenge was getting started is really hard because it's like a bowl of spaghetti bolognese, and you pull one piece and lots of stuff's coming with it. So there's just so much to do. It's really hard sometimes to work out where to begin. In the end, we made a stab, and we decided based on value that we'd start with some of the guest front end work, and that we'd look at our search engine, and that's where we'd begin our re-platforming exercise. But it's really hard because there's just so much to do. And as Andy said, we're spending a lot of our time at the moment trying to think about 2022 and the ordering and sequencing in which we start to pick apart the web that we need to. And it just at times feels quite overwhelming. So they were the slides that we prepared, and we thought we'd then just go into Q&A.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. It was really interesting, really good overview, actually. I think it's already stimulated Adrian to ask a question, but I'm going to keep it in the back pocket because I think it may be it's a big question to answer. So I'll probably hold that till the end and just hand over to Simon, because it may be pulled out of some of the questions that he asked. So I'll hand over to Simon now to kind of go straight into the Q&A session.
Thanks, Kev. Yeah, I think definitely that's a good question, Adrian. I wanted to cover something very similar later on. So I've been working with you guys since last November. And just as a bit of background, I was, as Lucy mentioned, we've been working on discoveries with Awaze, and the first thing I did was a discovery, and part of that was talking to a lot of different people within the business. And I really got a sense of, I think somebody told me that the Host Seasons was registered 87 years ago, and there are some people who've been in the business for a really, really, really long time. And so actually my first question was, in terms of Lucy, you've been the digital transformation director, and that's a really interesting job title. Actually, I'm not sure I've worked in an organization where I've seen that before. So how did you find such a company with so much heritage, and you come in as a transformation director? How did you find that experience? And what were your sort of learnings from the initial process? Because I appreciate now you're sort of in the middle of the transformation, but when you started at the beginning, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, like it was pretty hard, to be honest. There was days where I thought I can't do this, but there was a lot of time had to be spent talking to people, and trying to understand how to take people on a hearts and minds journey. So a lot of people were, I guess, a bit disillusioned because things had been promised for years, change had been promised, but it had never really got there. So there was a lot of kind of trying to understand people's mindset, trying to understand what processes we did have, where were the frustrations, where were the pain points, and then we talked a lot about how to move into a product org and where do you start, and we talked. Probably when I first joined, we talked about moving to a site core product, and maybe we start looking at how we do a little kind of product org around a new guest website. So in effect, we kind of probably had about 3 goes before it really, really took off. And I think that's where we really started to see the challenge around the recruitment. Because whichever way we looked at it, we weren't a tech organization at scale, but we were a business organization at scale. So that kind of challenge of how do we recruit the right people to bring about the change was probably where we started. And
do you feel like when was the point where you kind of, because obviously when you start a digital transformation project, there's quite a lot of unknowns, and I guess now you kind of got to a point where you feel like you know which way you need to go. When was that point? When do you think you got to the point of like, right, actually I know what we're doing now?
So I think it was probably about 2 years ago. So I think, like I said, we've got these brands and we've got all these different systems, and it was, a lot of discovery of trying to understand the overall systems landscape, which, wasn't particularly well documented. And like you'll know, Simon, from doing some of the discoveries, that there was a lot of fact finding to be done. But I think around about 2 years ago, that's where we thought, right, we know where we should start now. We should start with the search engine, because we can deliver real tangible benefit. So we can bring our search timing down from, say, 30 seconds, which in today's world is just not good enough, down to, under a second. And that's a real win to our guests, but it's also a real win to our owners, because we can convert more bookings, which means our owners can earn more revenue.
Cool. So I'm going to switch over to Andy. I've got a sort of similar question, but obviously, Andy, you've been here more recently. So my question from your point of view is, obviously, when you came in, sort of it was mid-transformation, but when you came in, what were the sort of first opportunities you found where you're like, okay, we can do this and this is going to make a big difference?
Yeah, so I was lucky that Lucy had done a lot of the hard work already, and we decided to move towards a product org. we had the headcount available to be able to recruit people and get them into the organization, but we still had some existing systems which we need to support. What we needed to do there really was work on some of the NFRs, so things around like availability and observability. I know it's something close to your heart, Simon, with the work you've been doing. So using New Relic to make sure that our systems are being monitored effectively, and that we're able to see exactly what's going on in our systems, so that importantly, we can tell where they're broken. We don't want to be in a position where someone outside of a team is telling a team that things aren't working. Even worse, a customer. If it gets through to a customer, then we've got a lot more work to do. And then I would say the second thing was looking at a bit of structure. So as we spoke about earlier, we would take people from different teams, put them together for a short-lived project, and then they would move back. Trying to develop someone in their career when you don't have like a stable management structure in place is really hard. So working with the teams to get engineering managers in place, looking at the minimum viable team concept to make sure that we've got a group of people there who know how each other work, that can trust each other, that they can make their own decisions. That's really what we aim to do. Along with that, metrics. So not just the metrics of how our systems are working and watching those, but also how the teams are working. A key thing for us at the moment is trying to get decent visibility on team health scores. So every week out of 5, how are you feeling? It's a finger in the air. We're not using it to compare teams. It's not there for people's objectives. We just want to know that teams are happy. And if we see team health dipping, that's a conversation that we start to have and say, how are you feeling? What's wrong? How can we help you out?
So that's kind of interesting then, in terms of those opportunities. Those are presumably kind of responses to challenges that the business has had. And I saw the earlier slides were kind of going to be one of my questions, actually, like kind of what challenges have you had? I was interested, looking through it, which of those have you experienced in other companies as kind of generic to the tech industry, and which of those have you found very specifically, okay, this is kind of either vacation rentals specific, or this is Awaze specific?
I think in the tech industry on the whole, IT, as it was known, has been treated as a fungible resource, or like not a competitive advantage. Some of the systems that we have are a symptom of that, where we would put out to tender, people would write a system, they'd return it, it wouldn't integrate very well. So starting to treat the development teams as part of our way forwards has been really important. We're moving to a position now where we're seeing that if teams if you have like well-developed teams internally, you can move a lot quicker. We've gone, even with our legacy systems, it was like a monthly release down to weekly releases and de-risking that. And then some of our newer product teams, the front end team, they're deploying up to 13 times a week, which again, in an organization that's been around for 87 years, is a completely different way of thinking. You have to discuss, so how do you engage with security when you're doing that level of releasing, how you work with other parts of the organization that are changing the infrastructure and making sure that you're not going to clash.
Cool. Yeah, that's no, that's definitely something I've experienced working with Awaze, is that doing those things like releasing regularly has made a big impact on some of the ways that people think about releasing new product features. Lucy, sort of same question to you, is have you noticed anything that you've thought, oh, this is a problem I've never had to deal with in another company before, or this is sort of specific to vacation rentals?
I think when I first joined, the thing that struck me was just the lack of investment that there'd been in IT, as it was called back then. And that was partly probably because we were owned by an American company, and the European leg of that was, it was profitable for them, and therefore I don't think they saw the need to invest, and they probably never saw the pain of not having all the things that we would expect to be in terms of basic systems, etc. And I don't think I'd seen that anywhere else. So I'd worked in retail before, I'd worked in financial services, and I'd worked in manufacturing. And they were all kind of keen investors in kind of keeping up and getting ahead of the game. And I've never really been somewhere where I felt like we actually needed to leapfrog even to just get to kind of competitive advantage. And obviously the disruptors in the market of Airbnb, Booking.com, you know, they don't come with the legacy problems that we have to deal with. They don't have this heritage. They don't have numerous brands with huge amounts of business logic that have been built into the systems to deal with. So that was a new challenge for me personally. And also, you know, we have two sides to our business. We have two customers in effect. We have the people who are going on holiday, but we have the owners, and the owners are so important to us, because without their properties, we don't have any holidays. We can't send anyone on holidays. So you've got a real two-sided coin, and you have to look through both lenses at everything you do.
When do you think the penny dropped in terms of like, okay, we've got to start investing in this, otherwise we're going to fall behind?
I think the penny dropped probably when we were bought by a private equity company. So, you know, the good old thing happened to us where lots of consultants came and spent time with us. And I think they were the people that brought in, I guess, the leadership team that could see the growth that could be achieved, but they could see how much effort was going into keeping the lights on, and that we weren't using people to the best of their abilities and getting the most value out of them.
I think that's one of the most exciting things about Awaze, to be honest, is as say when I joined, there, you know, we talked about a lot. There was a lot of effort going to keeping the lights on, but also from my delivery lead and technical point of view, it was like, well, there's a great opportunity there for actually, you know, the whole load of exciting technical systems that you're going to start building, which is really fun to be in on the ground floor. So with some of these issues, have you got any examples of things that were super successful, like any stories where you're like, we did this and actually this really worked? This was something we were quite proud of.
Yeah, so as part of the replatforming that we're doing, we've created the new search engine that Lucy spoke about, and we started looking at the front end technologies. Because the search system was decoupled from a lot of our legacy systems, the incoming web team were able to rely on that technology, and in 6 months be able to start to release their first micro front ends into production. I've never seen teams move that quickly. So it goes to show you, if you do get these things set up correctly, you can really move forward at a pace. And it's that team that's doing the 13 releases a week. The improvement that we've seen over our legacy systems, like the Lighthouse scores, have been amazing. And the search times now are down to less than half a second for fully dated searches, whereas before the pages were taking 20, 30 seconds to do searches and render out. So it's a massive improvement if you get those teams set up correctly and breaking some of those links to your legacy systems.
I think as well as that, we've put in a new guest payment platform. So we put in Bambora. So this was an initiative that kind of came again from going into the COVID crisis, as it were. And again, we've worked at high speed to get in a new payment platform and then roll that out across the markets as well. And I think the other thing is that we came out of the COVID stronger. We learned through COVID that we had to respond quicker than we had been doing in the past. And what I mean by that is, as a business, we went from being 80 to 20, 80% web bookings to 20% contact center bookings. We went to 100% contact center overnight. And that showed some weaknesses. But we fought really hard to come back, and we started kind of creating the concept of mini product teams around the front end about what can we do to make the My Account area on our website better for our customers, so that they can either transfer or cancel their booking. And by actually being forced into that situation and having to react really quickly, because we just couldn't offer great customer service or great owner service, and that's what we're here to do. and we couldn't do it. And we just came out stronger as a consequence, and the teams really started to pull together. And I think that's a great achievement for us, because we could have gone the other way. We could have just carried on drowning and floundering, but we didn't. We rallied and we said, this absolutely works. Let's harness what we've done in the lockdown with smaller teams and then build it out quickly.
Yeah, that's cool. So I've only got a couple of minutes left. So one last question is there anything you would do differently? Because it sounds like you've been on a learning journey, but is there anything where you thought, actually, if I did that again, I would do that differently from the beginning?
Yeah, so I think definitely for me will be to understand the tech landscape in a lot more detail before we start making some of these changes and really fleshing out all of the systems and their capabilities and responsibilities. The majority of our architectural documentation is driven off like one photo of a whiteboard picture. It's termed architectural gold dust within the organization. If I could start again, I would take that and I would like really drill down into each one of those boxes, figure out who wrote it, who owned it, what it's supposed to be doing, what it is doing based off what it's supposed to be doing, and making sure that we had a really good view going forwards of those systems. Because as we start to carve them out, we need to make sure that we're boxing off all of the responsibilities that they've got. It's far too easy for some of those things to drop through the gaps if we're not paying attention.
I think for me, one of the challenges that I still feel we had, and I wish we'd maybe done something different about, is we have a number of people that have got the long service that we've talked about, but they are really critical SMEs. They know the business process, they know how the systems work, they know a bit about the architecture, you know, they're kind of good all-rounders. And we're still in a position where I feel like we're pulling on them in so many directions, and we've never really been able to work out how we give them more space to help us think forward. They're always firefighting, and you know, we do pull them from pillar to post a little bit, and I wish we could have gone back and think about how to do that differently, and maybe how to use other resources to support them differently.
And then final question, and then I hand back over to Kev for the Q&A. So what excites you about the future of Awaze?
There's just so much. It's so exciting. So it sounds really cliche, doesn't it? But every day is a challenge. You know, every day is different. But I think what excites me is the potential. You know, so I look at these three main brands that we've got, and the number of holidays that we can sell is just amazing. And we can open up our product to so many people that wouldn't get to experience it. And just being able to do that is, you know, it's kind of a really rewarding job. Because it's a really nice thing to talk about every day, is sending people on holiday.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be growing our teams out, helping people develop in their career as well. As we grow as an organization, we're producing a lot of opportunities, and really we like to promote from within. So as we start to grow to more and more teams, we're going to be able to help people develop, move up from, you know, engineer to senior engineer, engineering manager, senior engineering manager, and hopefully one day I'll see someone that I've worked with take my job.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Kev, back to you.
Yeah, what a nice point to finish on. The thing I took was going from eBay to Copenhagen. What a jump that is, you know. So I've been to eBay, and it's you know, it's a different feel, isn't it, to Copenhagen? But I think there's some really interesting points there, and I think it's really sort of got the questions coming in. And I just wanted to thank you all, including Simon, there for that discussion, and hopefully it's got people thinking and answered some of the questions. But I'll sort of jump into the questions now. We've got sort of 17 minutes left, but I mean, if we'll run it as long as we need to. If that runs short and there's, you know, we run out of questions and it's come to natural, and that's great, but we're happy to kind of keep it going. So let's go straight back to Adrian. He was first. So what advice do you have for other companies starting digital transformations? What would you do differently if you were starting again? Maybe 1 point from each of you. So
I guess for me, it would be engaging with other organizations earlier, people like EE with our recruitment team, making sure, because EE have seen a lot of these things before and can help us, or could help those organizations that are going on this circumvent some of the issues that you might have seen.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I guess mine's probably a similar point. I think, although we opened Manchester relatively quickly, we needed more people on the ground to start some of the initial thinking. I think we underestimated the discovery phase on some of the items that we were looking at. And I think if we could have started those a little bit quicker with the right resources, we probably would have been able to move even faster than we have done.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And just the next question is from Mark Stead. Did you experience that's the way we have always done it comments from the longest standing employees? And if so, how did you overcome that mindset?
Yes, is the answer. We did. And to be honest, we still do sometimes. So, this is a journey. We've come a long way. We still do see some of that mindset. In terms of how do we try to work with that, so it's often on a kind of one-to-one basis, try and sit with them, understand, where have they seen their pain points, and also use examples of where we're seeing it working. And it's a time thing. Some people don't get there, but over the majority of the people in the organisation are now seeing the benefit of it, and they're actually seeing all these things that people said it can't be done, just can't be done. They're starting to see it actually happen. So it's just about taking them on that journey and trying to bring them into the teams that are making the achievements happen and making them feel part of it.
And just from that, just to dig a little bit deeper, obviously there's sort of the exec leadership team, which we probably have to stand up to and sell the vision. But obviously there's the other part, which is kind of the frozen middle, the layer below, which is the doers. Did you have to sort of work with both layers, or did you get support from the exec team? And where was the battles for, in essence? And where do you think you won to get the things moving?
So I think I'd say our leadership team they're very visionary, so they can see where we're trying to get to, and they all, they're all 100% behind the change, so they're really receptive to the ideas. To be honest, the rest of the employees are also, they want change, they want the business to survive, and although we've got lots of people with long-standing service, what that makes them is actually really, really loyal. And really wedded to what we do, and they want us to survive. So the conversations tend to be more at that level, but I wouldn't say that it's not that they don't want it to change, they just can't see it and they can't visualize how it's going to change.
One of the things that I talk about is pickling. When you've been in a company for like 6 months, you start to get pickled in the vinegar of that company, and that even after 6 months, you start to be like, well, but that's the way it works. Because we've been getting new people into the Manchester office, they're able to step back and look at something and say, that's crazy. Why are you doing it that way? What about if we did this, this, and this? As part of the 2022 work, when we've been working in workshops, Lucy and I have been saying, we know that the existing system does this, but what does it need to do at its core? If we break it down to its essence, that all that's doing is picking something up from here and moving it to over there. And just breaking things down and just asking why a lot, doing the 5 whys, and people start to see the simplicity in the systems that we can create.
I think the other thing we've done is we've created a simplification workstream, and that's all about looking at kind of our business logic and the way we do things and starting to tackle, why do we have 10 booking terms and conditions? Why do we have 47 owner payment rules? All that kind of stuff, because actually talking through and trying to look at the business logic really helps us being able to build simpler products as well. So that business simplification work stream, although it's been a long burn and it's been quite hard and is a challenge at times, just getting some of those really difficult business challenges out on the table early has also helped us.
Yeah, and I think the next question from Andrew, sort of saying no is often very difficult. How did you get your stakeholders to embrace this? Is kind of linked. I mean, if there's any additional sort of points there, or do you think you've kind of covered that?
No, I think, we've started to use data a lot more. So we've started that whole prioritizing a roadmap based on business value and then using data to kind of back up why that's been prioritized. But you're right, it is a journey. You know, we have met the resistance where we've said no and then it gets escalated and we go back around it. But by having solid data about why we need to do something, you know, whether that's we think we can increase the bookings versus, you know, we're getting called out every night because this thing's falling over and it's costing us X, Y, and Z and it's not sustainable anymore. We're using data to help that conversation. And that takes the emotion out of it.
Yeah, evidence in it is always a good way to have a logical argument or make your point. So that's great. And we're getting lots of questions, so I'll keep going through them. So thank you for that answer. Next question is from Kevin Stone. You must be generating a lot of data. Good link. How are you using that in the business?
So right now we're revamping our data warehouse. We're starting to pump that into a new data warehouse, and we're set up a new analytics function with a new chief data officer. We're starting to figure out how we can reproduce the reports that we've got now and to remove some of the ad hoc reporting. We have an awful lot of requests going into like our main data team, which we think will be able to make people self-serve in the future, again, driving that autonomy in the teams. And we're starting to look at future planning, improving our like download pricing system and rolling that out over more of our brands.
Fantastic. Any fair points, Lucy? I think that's quite good.
No,
It's great to see so many Kevs in the meeting. We've got another Kev Roberts. I'm a big fan of Kevs. Breaking up a monolith is really hard. Can you share how you were approaching that problem, please?
Yeah, so as I referred to earlier, like Lucy and her team have done a really good job of figuring out all the capabilities of our core systems. It's relatively easy once you know the capabilities of the systems to break them down into domains. Once you have those domains, you can put services around them. I'm going to jump on to kind of cover, it's going to answer a little bit of another question about decomposing monoliths into many small things. So like we've set up, done a good chunk of work over all of our sites and through a few of our departments on coming up with a tech radar so that we don't have that anarchy and people reading something on Hacker News and then creating a whole system based off of it, which we really can't support as an organization. A bit of a spoiler, I'm going to be presenting that out tomorrow at the Product and Tech All Hands. But yeah, that's a good way that we've been maintaining our standards there. And having teams that have done this before in organizations is really handy. A lot of the people that we're getting into the organization through our recruitment and through people like Equal Experts have done this before, and they're able to come in and really support people in the org who've been around for a bit longer.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Next one's from Mark. There are loads of questions, this is great. So understanding how your users actually use the products and systems is key to ongoing evolution. What measures and processes are being put into place to ensure you understand your users?
I'll take this one, Lucy, if that's all right. So as part of the setup of this new data and analytics team, we're revamping the way that we do our Google Analytics tracking. So there's a big ongoing program of work to make sure that we are coming up with consistent way of tagging our user behavior and making sure that we can then roll it out over all of our brands.
Fantastic. I think, you know, from SK, while decomposing the monoliths, I think we've answered to many small things, micro, mini services. How do you manage to maintain standards, architecture standards, patterns, for instance, for efficiency? At least they all stray into their own. The question, because having standards may be against the grain of decomposing, diversifying, or is this not even a concern? Thank you. My name is Shwami, sorry. That's okay, Shwami.
Yeah, so like the standards that we came up with were all kind of based off the tech radar. We have a group of engineering managers meet on a regular basis to discuss what they're doing. It's not against the grain of diversifying, it's just making sure that you're diversifying your tech in the right way. Part of the outcome of the tech radar is that we're setting up a tech radar guild, and part of their job is going to be how we get every 6 months new things onto the tech radar, how we prove them out in a really simple and not expensive way, so we can back out those technology choices if it proves to be an issue. We're also coming up with the criteria on when we think something is successful or not.
Fantastic, thank you for that. And a question from Matt Taylor now, which I think you touched on as one of the challenges of sort of COVID, but bringing people along with you on a transformation journey is challenging at any time. But remote only working during lockdown must have been even harder. What approaches did you take or try to make these personal connections to win hearts and minds in the absence of in-person meetings?
Want me to say that one, Andy?
Yeah, go.
So yeah, working remote's hard. But it's the reality of our business as well, to be honest. We're never all going to be in one room for every meeting. So we do lots of things. So from a company-wide level, we have a monthly all-hands meeting. So that kind of puts a spotlight on a particular area of the business, which the whole company can dial into. We then also have a monthly product and tech all-hands. So kind of same concept that everyone can dial into, and we do a spotlight on a certain area that we're investing in. From team perspective, we do the good old kind of let's see how it goes, because everyone's different on this stuff. But I do things like we play bingo once a month remotely. We play the plasticine game where we all have to build a model. We try to do online drinks. So we kind of try to do social online. It's hard. I always feel slightly exhausted after doing it, trying to chair it for about 3 hours, but my bottle of wine normally helps me get through it. And then also from a kind of taking, I guess, the wider organisation on the journey, it's really about putting those one-to-one calls in, and using your network to listen to what people are saying and then kind of reacting on the feedback that you hear. So, if you hear that a colleague in finance is feeling really uncertain or unhappy, it's just about reaching out to them and showing them that you're a person and that you can be approached and you can talk these things through. Most people just want to talk about it. It's not that they're saying they don't want the change to happen. They just want a bit of support, guidance and reassurance. And they've normally got like one key question, which is really related to the job they do. And they've not understood how they're going to be doing that in the future. And then also just using things like demos and making sure as many people as possible are invited so that they can see the progress of the products that you're building. And we ask for feedback a lot.
And just quickly, obviously, just to follow on from probably about 300 LinkedIn messages or questions around, what percentage of, when you go back to work when COVID's over, face-to-face versus virtual, where do you sit on that?
So we sit on a range. So I guess feels like we're moving towards the kind of 3 days in the office, 2 days from home type model. Some of our colleagues are totally home-based. Obviously, we have a huge number of roles in the organisation. So we have people going out to recruit properties. So they're actually on the road for the majority of their role. We have people based in offices that are answering phones within our contact centre. So they tend still to be on the 5 day a week in an office. And then there's kind of more I guess, what would have been termed once the head office type functions, which are kind of more doing the 3-2 type remote working model. But for someone like Andy and I, we go where we need to go, whichever office we need to be in, that's where we go.
Perfect. So we've got 3 minutes left. So there's another question from Sheila. I know it's not your area, but do you see a shift from hotel-based holidays to what you offer in the future? And if you do, why do you think that is?
So I don't know if you are seeing a shift from hotel-based holidays, but I know that what I would like about this kind of holiday is it's a bit more personal. You go into these smaller locations. It's nicer. You're there with your family. Hotels can be quite impersonal. You're walking around with loads of people in a noisy dining room. You can choose where to go out. That's what I think people are looking for, and just the breadth of interesting properties that you can stay in. If you go to the site, you can find some really quirky, interesting, odd properties to go and stay in around the UK and on Novasol, like throughout the rest of Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd also add that lots of people go to a hotel because they want the shared facilities, so they want the restaurant or they want the swimming pool. Our lodge and park offering gives customers that. So they still get their own personal space, but they get the joy of the facilities that they can use.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good answer, actually, and I think that's a good point to sort of bring the meeting to an end, really, and thank Andrew and Lucy as our speakers. That was really, really interesting. I just want to thank them for the time and effort they put into this. I think we've all sort of learned a lot. If there's any more questions, yeah, I think we'll have to take it to another meeting. I think for me, it's around things like AI, and you're going to create some system that allows people like myself who always forgets to book holidays, allows them to book them last minute. But for your time, thanks you for that. And also thank you to Simon for sort of chairing the Q&A. So the only last thing to say is our next talk, if you want to attend, is on Wednesday, September the 29th. It's Agile Approaches to Funding Innovation. It's for our sort of Equal Experts Australia. I think British Standard Time, it's 9 a.m. And to thank you all for attending, and thank you for your time. So thanks a lot and have a great evening.